The moment the stage lights flickered on, something strange happened in the room. The audience wasn't loud. They weren't cheering. They were waiting. And so was Simon Cowell, arms crossed, eyes sharp, already halfway to a judgment. Before we dive into this unbelievable story, let me ask you something real quick. Have you ever judged someone too fast? If stories like this move you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because what you're about to hear might just change the way you see people forever. His name was Miguel Santos, a soft-spoken Filipino man in his early 30s, standing alone at the center of the stage. He wore a slightly oversized jacket, polished shoes that had seen better days, and a nervous smile that couldn't hide how much this moment meant to him. When the host asked where he was from, Miguel said, "Originally from Cebu, Philippines. I work as a hotel cleaner here." A few polite claps followed, but nothing special. Simon raised an eyebrow. He'd heard stories like this 1,000 times. When Miguel said he would be singing Elvis Presley, there was a ripple of quiet laughter. Simon leaned forward and said bluntly, "Elvis is very hard to do well." Miguel nodded respectfully. "Yes, sir. I know." His voice trembled just a little. That was the first crack in his armor. The music started, and within seconds, Simon pressed the buzzer. Red light. 10 seconds. That was all it took. The sound cut off, and an awkward silence swallowed the room. Simon shook his head. "I'm sorry. That just wasn't working for me." The audience murmured. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked ready to move on. Miguel stood frozen, his hands clenched at his sides. His dream was collapsing in front of millions, live. But then something unexpected happened. Miguel lifted his head and spoke softly into the microphone. "Sir, may I please ask for one more chance? Just 10 seconds. That's all." Simon sighed, clearly annoyed. "Why should I?" Miguel swallowed hard. "Because I didn't come here to be famous. I came here to prove something, to my father." That stopped the room. Miguel explained that his father had been a huge Elvis fan back in the Philippines, a jeepney driver who used to sing Elvis songs to passengers to earn extra tips. When Miguel was 12, his father lost his voice due to illness. Not long after, he passed away. Miguel never got to hear him sing again. "Elvis," he said, "is the sound of my childhood. The sound of my father being happy." His eyes glistened. "Please. Just 10 seconds." Simon hesitated. The audience began to clap softly, then louder. Finally, Simon waved his hand. "Fine. 10 seconds." The music restarted, but this time, Miguel closed his eyes. When he sang again, it was different. The nervousness was gone. His voice came out rich, controlled, and hauntingly familiar, but not an imitation. It carried pain, love, and memory. The room changed. Conversations stopped. Phones lowered. One judge's mouth fell open. 10 seconds passed. Then 20. No one stopped him. Miguel wasn't just singing. He was telling a story without words. Every note felt lived in, like he had carried it across oceans and years of sacrifice. He sang about loneliness, about longing, about holding on when everything tells you to let go. By the time the song ended, there was silence again, but this time, it was heavy, emotional silence. Then the audience exploded. People stood up, clapping, cheering, some wiping away tears. One judge had both hands over her mouth. Simon didn't say anything at first. He just stared at Miguel, then quietly said, "That was completely different." He paused. "Why didn't you sing like that the first time?" Miguel smiled sadly. "Because the first time, I was scared. The second time, I was thinking about my father." Simon nodded slowly. "I cut you off too quickly. And I was wrong." But the story didn't end on that stage. After the audition went viral, people learned more about Miguel. How he had moved abroad to support his mother and younger siblings. How he worked night shifts cleaning hotel rooms, singing softly to himself while scrubbing floors. How he sent most of his paycheck home. How music was the only thing that reminded him who he really was. Miguel didn't win the competition. But he won something else. Messages poured in from around the world. Filipinos who saw themselves in his struggle. Immigrants who felt invisible. Fathers and sons who shared music as their language of love. A small record label reached out. He began performing at community events, then bigger venues. And one day, he stood on a stage in Cebu, singing Elvis songs to a crowd that included his mother in the front row, crying and smiling at the same time. In an interview later, Miguel said something that stuck with millions. Sometimes people only hear noise when you're afraid. But when you sing from truth, they hear your soul. So here's the real question: how many times have we been cut off after 10 seconds? How many times have we doubted ourselves because someone else didn't hear our full story? Miguel's journey reminds us that talent is important, but courage is everything. And that one more chance, just one, can change a life. If this story moved you, if it reminded you not to judge too quickly and to believe a little longer, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because somewhere out there, someone is waiting for their second 10 seconds, and their voice deserves to be heard. The room was loud, but not with excitement, more like impatience. Another audition. Another hopeful dreamer. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, already preparing himself for disappointment. Before this story unfolds, pause for a second. Have you ever almost skipped a video, a song, or even a person, only to later realize you would have missed something life-changing? If stories like this inspire you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because this one starts with rejection and ends with something unforgettable. When the curtains opened, a thin Filipino man stepped onto the stage, holding the microphone like it might slip away. His name was Rafael Cruz. He smiled nervously, bowing slightly to the judges, a habit he never grew out of. His accent was gentle, his voice polite. When asked what he did for a living, he hesitated before answering, "I work in a kitchen. Dishwasher." A few nods. Nothing remarkable. When he said he'd be singing Elvis Presley, Simon sighed and glanced at the other judges as if to say, "Here we go again." The music started, and 10 seconds later, Simon cut him off. "That's enough," Simon said flatly. "I don't think this is going anywhere." The buzzer echoed like a door slamming shut. The audience groaned. Rafael froze. His shoulders dropped, not in anger, but in quiet acceptance. He nodded, whispering, "Thank you for your time," and turned slightly, ready to leave. But his foot didn't move. Instead, he turned back around. His voice shook, but he spoke anyway. "Sir, may I say something?" Simon looked surprised but waved his hand. Quickly. Rafael took a breath. "I know I don't look like Elvis. I know I don't sound perfect yet. But I've been singing his songs since I was 9 years old. Not for stages. For hospital rooms." The audience went still. Rafael explained that his mother had been a nurse in the Philippines. When patients were scared, lonely, or dying, young Rafael would sing outside the rooms while waiting for her shift to end. "Elvis songs," he said softly. "They made people smile, even when they were hurting." Simon leaned forward now. Rafael continued, "When my mother got sick, she asked me to sing for her. She couldn't speak anymore. But when I sang Elvis, she squeezed my hand." His eyes filled with tears. "She passed away 2 years ago. This is the first time I've sung since." The audience was silent. One judge wiped her eyes. Simon cleared his throat. "You're saying you haven't sung in 2 years, and you chose this stage?" Rafael nodded. "Because if I don't face my fear now, I'll never forgive myself." Simon paused. Then quietly said, "Start again. From the beginning." The music played once more, but this time, Rafael didn't rush. He stood still. When he sang, his voice wasn't flashy, but it was honest. Warm. Deep. It wrapped around the room like a memory. He didn't try to be Elvis. He sang like a son. Like a caregiver. Like someone who had lost and survived. Before anyone laughed, before anyone judged, before Simon's hand even hovered over the red buzzer, this man had already lost everything once. And in just 10 seconds, he was about to lose it all again. If you believe that second chances matter, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because this story proves that sometimes one moment can rewrite an entire life. When the doors opened, a middle-aged Filipino man walked slowly onto the stage. His name was Daniel Reyes. He looked older than his age, the kind of tired you get not from years, but from responsibility. His shoulders were slightly hunched, his hands rough, his smile polite but cautious. When asked what he did for work, Daniel hesitated, then said quietly, "I'm a delivery driver. I sing only when I'm alone." The audience offered a few scattered claps. Simon Cowell barely reacted. Then came the question that changed the mood. "What will you be singing today?" "Elvis Presley," Daniel replied. Simon exhaled sharply. "That's a big risk." The music started. And 10 seconds later, Simon cut him off. The buzzer screamed. The track stopped. Simon shook his head. "Daniel, this isn't for me. It sounds dated, and honestly, it's not connecting." The words landed hard. The audience groaned. Someone whispered, "Oh no." Daniel stood there, blinking, trying to stay composed as his dream cracked open in front of him. He nodded once and stepped back from the microphone. "Thank you, sir." His voice was calm, but his eyes weren't. He turned to leave. Then he stopped. He walked back to the mic, hands shaking now. "Sir, may I speak?" Simon looked irritated but nodded. "Make it quick." Daniel took a breath that felt like it came from his chest, not his lungs. "I left the Philippines 10 years ago," he said. "My wife and I had a small house. Not much. But we were happy." He paused. "When our daughter got sick, we sold everything. The house. Our furniture. Even my guitar." His voice cracked. "I came here to work so I could send money home." The room was silent. He continued, "My daughter loved Elvis. She used to dance when I sang Can't Help Falling in Love. Even when she was too weak to stand." Daniel swallowed hard. "She passed away 3 years ago. Today is her birthday." One of the judges covered her mouth. Simon didn't move. Daniel looked straight ahead. "I'm not here to win. I just want to sing one full song for her. Please." The audience began clapping, slowly at first, then louder. The energy shifted. Simon stared at Daniel for a long moment, then leaned forward. "All right," he said quietly. "Sing." The music restarted. This time, Daniel didn't rush. He closed his eyes. When he sang, his voice was warm, weathered, and deeply human. Not perfect. Not polished. But real. Every lyric felt like a memory being relived. You could hear the love in his voice, the grief, the hope he refused to let die. It wasn't Elvis on a stage, it was a father singing to his child. By the second verse, people were crying openly. The audience leaned in. The judges stopped taking notes. When Daniel reached the final line, his voice trembled, but he didn't break. The song ended. No one spoke. Then the entire theater stood up. Simon rose slowly, clapping. "Daniel," he said, his voice softer than anyone expected, "I was wrong to stop you." He paused. "That was one of the most honest performances I've heard on this stage." Daniel wiped his face, overwhelmed. All 4 judges voted yes. But the real impact came after. Daniel's audition spread across the world. Parents shared it with captions about love and loss. Immigrants saw themselves in his sacrifice. People who had given up on their dreams felt something wake up inside them. Daniel was invited to sing at charity events, memorials, and children's hospitals. He didn't chase fame. He sang for people who needed it. In his final interview, Daniel said something that stayed with everyone. "I thought my voice died when my daughter did. But I realized, love doesn't disappear. It just changes form. And that's the message. Never judge a voice by its first 10 seconds. Never assume you know someone's story by how they look or where they come from. Sometimes the quietest people carry the loudest truths." If this story moved you, if it reminded you to listen longer and love deeper, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because the next time someone asks for just one more chance, it might be their only one.